first gata of Mahamangala Sutta, Asevanat Balanang Panditanang Sevana Pujat Pujaniyanang Etang Mangalam Uttamang. And the story that Samit read today was also on the similar lines. The moral he read said that with Kaya, Vacha, and mind, so that is with bodily actions, verbal actions, and with mind, always try to do good to other people. Try to be nice, try to do good, and spread your loving kindness. So thank you very much for that session. We will move on to our next session, which is the main guest speaker that we invite every week. Our speaker today is Vaishali Gaidhani. Dada, please make Vaishali Tai co-host. She has a presentation to share.
Okay.
And before I invite Vaishali Tai, I just wanted to kind of give a brief introduction about Tai. She comes from a physics background and had been active in corporate world in the capacity of sustainable development engineering solutions, and also in the capacity of education and information technology, various roles. But her background comes from physics and mathematics. And after 2010, she picked up Pali and Buddhist studies as her academic career. Currently, she is a PhD student candidate at University of West California, and has academically presented multiple papers, research papers on various national and international conferences in USA, India, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Korea. So we have had pleasure to listen to Tai earlier too, but the topic today that she is going to cover is very interested, especially marking the World Women's Day. So the topic today that Vaishali Tai is covering is Liberated Women, Daughters of the Buddha. So I don't want it to take much time. I wanted to welcome Vaishali Tai to today's session. And Tai, please start your video. We wanted to see you as well. And please take it from here. And welcome to today's session.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. And I've been here listening to all the sessions, in fact, from Sanjay's phone, for that matter. So I've been listening to all of the speakers, especially that began with the precepts, and then Bhante talking about the Mangala Sutta. And also the beautiful presentation by young kids, Samit. So it's really wonderful to be here today. And to all attending the session, I say Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim. So today we're going to talk about a little about how it is that we have the texts today, which are so valuable. And drawing inspiration from these texts, how do we look at its relevance, especially to do with what kind of roadmap we have ahead of us. So I would not like to make this whole thing too much of an academic session, but even then, I would still like to bring out some points that would be helpful for all of us. So considering that, I would like to share my presentation with your permission.
Yes, Tai, please, kindly go ahead.
Thank you, Pankaj. Can all of you see the presentation?
Yes, like we can see it.
Okay, all right. So let us join hands first. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And I would also like to say Vandami Bhante and bow down 3 times to Bhante as well. I'm not sure whether Bhante is there online. Yeah. And to all of you, I would like to say Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim. And with this understanding that we are going to listen to the Buddha Vachana, I would like to just add in one point over here that the Dhamma Desna Bhante has given us is so wonderful to give us that that foundation, that understanding that what are we going to listen to, how useful it is. So with this Yoniso Manasikara, the right attention, let us please go ahead. So here now, like the title of today's presentation is relevant to the International Women's Day. And so considering that, we had kept this title as Liberated Women. But what I understood while doing the presentation and finding and getting together the content, I found out that today we are all, most of us, I mean, all of us for that matter, are upasakas, upasikas. And from that perspective, I thought that it would be a wonderful idea if we have the noble women, that's the Arya women, also included in this presentation, because during the time of the Buddha, there were so many Arya upasikas in Savatthi and in other places as well. And then what is the difference between liberated and noble ones? So the liberated ones are the arahats, and the noble ones, that is the Aryas, they also include the upasak and upasikas as lay disciples who have attained the Sotapanna stage or the other 3 stages as well. That's Sagadagami Phala, Anagami Phala, Arahata Phala. So these are the 4 stages. And these 4 stages represent an Arya Puggala. There are also intermediate stages. So once a person is a Sotapanna Phala, he is automatically a Sagadagami Magga, the next stage, so that he's going to attain. Or it can be anything in between as well. So that's why I just put in the fruition stages over here, and also included the upasakas and upasikas, because later I thought that would be the prime focus of this presentation. Now, the references that we're going to use primarily from the Pali Tipitaka. That's the Therigatha, Dhammapada, Dattakatha, Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, all the Nikayas, Mahavansa, and so on and so forth. But primarily, it's going to be the Pali Tipitaka. We would be using translations as well, which would be mentioned in the bibliography, whatever, at the end of the presentation. Now, what are the contents that we're going to talk about today? So the women at the time of the Buddha, their condition and status. This is going to be a little bit that we're going to talk about this point. And then we go ahead. Why did they take refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha? Why do we take the precepts? So that is the second point. And what is the meaning of taking refuge in the Noble Triple Gems? What does it mean to do that? And then the 5 stages of a householder progressing in the Dhamma and the 4 Noble Truths. So those 5 stages we'll be discussing. Why do we need to know the importance as on today of all of these things? A little bit, we would close on that. So let's begin. Women at the time of the Buddha and their condition. Women were usually, the different kind of setup that the society had at that time was, we can see over here, that all kinds of women, whether they were queens from the royal family or even oppressed maids all of them came into the fold of the Buddha Dhamma, came under refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Now, this is something again, a very, very powerful thing today, as well as even then, because even today we see the same situation. And in Buddhism, the unique thing that it enfolds, it embraces everyone. That is the unique thing. So at that time also, the names that I've mentioned here are mostly from the theories, the renunciate nuns who attained arhathood. So here we can see women confined to 4 walls like Queen Samavati. Then there was freedom to move in society like Visakha from a rich family. Then there were maids and slaves like Khujutara, Punnika, and then queens like Hema, wife of King Bimbisara, princess like Sumedha, obedient daughter like Uttara, revolting daughter like Padachara, rich Nagarvadhu like Ambapali, then Ganikas or courtesans like Vimala and Sirima, many householder ladies leaving the family and joining the Bhikkhu Sangha like Uttara, then Teen Sumatta Theri, the Therigata mentions those, then the Panchasata Bhikkhunis, Theris, disciples of Padachara. So these kind of many women who were suffering from grief used to join the Bhikkhuni Sangha. Again, women were looked upon with different perspectives, out of which primarily they were looked upon as objects of desire for their beauty, like Subhathari and Upalvarnathari. So to begin with, what was the Buddha's idea about women? So we see in the beginning itself, even before enlightenment, the Buddha and the 5 companions who were leading an ascetic life. At that time, the Buddha was Samana Gautama on the path of being a future Buddha. So the Buddha emphasized in the Parinibbana Sutta how important the dana, the kheer offering of Lady Sujata was to attaining the Bodhi enlightenment, or to become the Buddha in finding the middle path to both of these things, how important it was. And we all know that it was primarily because of Lady Sujata's offering kheer and Saman Gautama accepting the kheer and consuming the food that the 5 ascetics companions, they left the Buddha. So that was the kind of concept, that was the kind of idea in the Samana area, so that amongst the Samanas. So we see here that there was no such kind of knowledge that the Samanas had, which they could address when confronted with a female. So that is the concept, earlier concept. All the schools that were there, that existed at that time, even Samana Gautama, when approached Alar Kalama, the earlier teachers, and Udakaram Putta, this solution of confronting the females was absent at that time. In fact, with Udaka Ramputta, it was like, oh, let us not go into the village because we are not able to address this aspect of facing the females. So that was the idea. Now, what happens when the Buddha attains enlightenment? So the Buddha knew that there are some defilements still within the Samanas, which do not help them, support them in addressing this problem. And therefore, the Buddha knew that there is still way ahead. There is still something that needs to be done to attain freedom from the kilesas. There are still some kilesas remaining. That is how the Buddha, the Samana Gautama, set out and tried to fulfill that aspect. That's the ultimate bodhi, that enlightenment that the Buddha attained at Bodh Gaya. So this is the major difference. The Buddha said, I want to be there to the village to seek alms. And then I still do not want to get affected by this kind of the gender influence. So here we have, after the Buddha attained enlightenment, he had so much compassion for women. And we see that there were ladies who were so much attached to their families, especially the children, so much attachment to the children. Now, we see that Kisa Gautami, she was like, we know the story of Kisa Gautami, that her child, a baby boy, passes away, and how she rushes to the Buddha to give him back his life. So again, we know the story of the mustard seeds. Then we know about Lady Visakha. Visakha also lost her granddaughter. So here it is a boy as well as a girl, but the attachment is the same. So Visakha also said she was such a nice, obedient, virtuous daughter, granddaughter. And then she also, like with wet clothes, she approached the Buddha and she was grieving for her. So again, the Buddha said, what if the whole of the Savatthi are your children? And how would you like that? And she said, yes, that would be nice. But then every day she would want to grieve about someone or the other, maybe one or two people passing away every day. So this is what, again, we see that when people are grieving, it's so difficult to accept wisdom. And that is the reason the Buddha said to Kisa Gautami to go and seek out the mustard seeds, just to give her time to calm down. And also, in the process, develop her wisdom. Now, again, we know about Sivali Mata, Queen Suppavasa. She carried her baby, that's the Sivali there, for 7 years, 7 months. And when asked if she wanted to become a mother, and she still said yes. So that was the kind of attachment that women had. Or I think even today, when women bear children, they have a lot of attachment to their children. So this is something which comes naturally to them. Okay. But on the contrary, we see King Pasenadi yearning for a boy child, specifically, and for reasons we know very well, that the king needs a year for the kingdom. So that's why King Pasenadi, he was very sad when he received the news that that the daughter was born to him. And the Buddha recognized this sadness in him. And then the Buddha told him, Itipihi ekachya seya posa janadipa medhavini silavati sasudeva patibatta. Now, well, some women are better than men. A ruler of people, wise and virtuous, a devoted wife who honors her mother-in-law. So here it can be the relatives as well. Somewhere it is translated as relatives. And when she has a son, he becomes a hero, O Lord of the land. The son of such a blessed lady may even rule the realm. So this is something that the Buddha had in mind about the girl child. But again, we can find the point here that women, after all, were looked after as one who would bear a child. He can also bear a Chakravarti king. She can also bear a Chakravarti king, or even the Buddha, the Pachek Buddha, the Arhants. So these are some things that were looked at, and even by the Buddha, considering the situation, the society, these were the ideas that the Buddha has shared with King Pasenadi at that time and admonished him. Again, the Buddha, in the Anguttara Nikaya, we find that the Buddha has given some training guidelines for girls, how to conduct when they get married, and how to be there, how to live there amongst the in-laws. So these are certain things like we will rise up early and be the last to retire, and then be willing to work and then talk sweetly and train. And one unique thing that the Buddha said over here to the girls or to the young ladies, that they should be skilled in the husband's business. This is something that was very unique. That the girl, the young lady, the young wife should know about the husband's business in and out, in the sense who are the servants, messengers, and what kind of work they do, each of them, and who are sick, what are their strengths and weaknesses, and how each one should be properly given the due share of food and grains. So this is a unique thing, which I think even today is we do not find in everywhere. I mean, it is very specific to certain families who have businesses, maybe, and even that there also it may not be so. So this was something that the Buddha trained the girls. The training guidelines for the girls were. And further, we see the Arya Upasikas, the time of the Buddha, and their condition and status. So the attainment of Magga and Phala by the Upasikas. How was it? Staying within the walls of their house, they could attain, they could practice and attain the Magga and Phala. Not the Arhanta stage, but the previous stages of the Arya Puggala. So here we have Matuka Mata, and she was an Anagami. So Matuka Mata was the mother of a Sethi. And when during the Vasa, the bhikkhus used to visit for their Vasa period, for the period of meditating in those 3 months. So that time, Matuka Mata would be serving them and also practicing, learning from them about the Panchakhanda and so on. And in the due course, she attained Anagami and also attained Idibal, like Parachitta Janami. She could read the mind of the other. And so that was the capacity and the attainment even of lay Upasikas. And then we have Visakha, barely at the age of 7. Her grandfather took her to the Buddha to visit the Buddha, along with the 500 friends, and she along with all of her friends attained Sotapatti Phala. So at the age of 7. So this is something very, you can say that all these are at the prime of attaining their fruition during the time of the Buddha. So then we have Uttara Upasika's metta, how she converted the courtesan Sirima, who's the sister of Jivaka. So initially, Sirima was jealous of Uttara, who's the wife of Sumana, a Sethi. But how Uttara's metta converted Sirima, that both of them attained Sotapatti fruition. So this is Dhammapada verse 2023. And then that is the verse which is there from the Jataka. Kodhang akodhena jine asadhung sadhuna jine. Kadaryang danena alikavadinang sachena jine. Let anger be conquered by non-anger. Let bad ones be conquered by good. Let miserliness be overcome by charity. Let the liar be conquered by the truth. So, and then on the other hand, when we look at the jealousy, because jealousy is one quality or nature of women, which we get to see even in the Pali Tipitaka. So the jealousy of Magandiya towards Samavati, because Samavati were ardent follower, ardent devotee of the Buddha. So that is why Magandiya, the other wife of King Udayin, was jealous of Samavati. And she did many things to harm her. But it was Samavati's metta that saved her and her 500 mates from King Udayin's arrow. But they were drowned in the palace fire, which Magandiya caused to occur. Even after that, Magandiya's fate was also the same by King Udayan. So this is something like about the upasikas also, that they had so much of the capabilities in the Buddha Sasana. Now, again, what we are looking at today, the attainment of arhathood by women after renunciation as theories. So that's we have the Theri Gatha as one of the books in the Khudak Nikai, is the 9th book, 73 poems and 494 verses there. And we have so many of the Mahatheris there. It begins with the first Bhikkhuni, Mahapajapati Gautami Theri. So the whole thing, the whole story of the Bhikkhuni Sangha begins with Mahapajapati Gautami. And I think in the Panchaka or Chaka Nipata, 6th chapter of 6, we have Mahapajapati Gautami Theri's Gatha or the Udan. Basically, what is Theri Gatha? Those are the Udana, the spontaneous, glad occurrences, which the Theris, at enlightenment, when they attained Arhathood, they just said those utterances. Those words just came out when they. So what these utterances are basically, like the utterances, the poems, they describe what was their problem, what was the difficulty that they were facing, and what was their grievance, what was their suffering, and how did they overcome those? How did they attain arhathood? And how are they free today? How are they liberated? So we have all of these theories listed out there, like again, Rahul Mata, then about a sister, Buddha's sister, Sundarinanda, about Upalvanna, about Parachara, about Dhammadina, about Khema, and many more. Then the first Bhikkhunis. The first Bhikkhuni Sangha was formed at Vaishali, we know that, an unparalleled event in the history of the world. Mahapajapati Gautami, as an ascetic, as a renunciate, followed the Buddha to Vaishali with so much difficulty, and having shaved her hair and her 500 maids along with her. And they came and requested the Buddha to get ordination. The Buddha granted the ordination at the request of Bhante Anandathera. However, 8 additional rules were put into the following the practice. Now, today we see this place on the map. It's an actual location at the site, the Mahavihara. It's swastik shaped, and it stands, or the ruins of it stands even today for us to see at Vaishali. So this is one of the places which has a lot of events happening at the time of the Buddha. Now, this pristine place where many women were liberated from the suffering, the daughters of the Buddha attained arhathood, the realization of the bliss of Nibbana 2,600 years ago, which we can see even today. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the theories. I would not like to focus too much on this. Okay, like we have 15 minutes more, so I would like to focus more on the upasikas for that matter. But here we would just I have taken few theories to talk about because they are so important. So Mahapajapati Gautami Theri Gatha says, it begins with Buddha Vira Namo Tyathu Sabba Sattana Muttama Yo Mang Dukha Pamochesi Ayancha Bahukang Janam. O Buddha, my hero, homage to you, supreme among all beings, who released me from suffering and many other beings as well. And later, Mahapajapati Gautami Theri also talks about her elder sister, Maya. And she says that it's for the benefit of many that Maya gave birth to Siddhartha Gautam. Yeah. She's so thankful and very grateful to her. And then we come to know about we have Rahul Mata. We have to talk about so many, but in this short time we cannot cover everyone. So few other important one is a few other important theories are, so here we have Parachara theory. Parachara theory, the unique thing about her was she was so young. She was so young, a revolting kind, breaking the societal norms. But then when she came into the fold of the Buddha himself taught Parachara theory. Even when there were the bhikkhunis and the bhikkhus and the bhikkhunis, even then the Buddha taught Parachara theory. And how it all happened when she visited the Buddha, she was not in her mind. But the Buddha says, it strictly says to her to come into sati, to get into the mindfulness. And when she does that, she starts wailing out her grief that she's lost all of her relatives, where she was seeking refuge. Her wife, her husband, her 2 children, her mother, father, brother, everyone. So the Buddha says, Sattha tassa vachanang sutva patachare ma chintai tava tanang saranang avasayo bhavitum samathaseva santigang agatasi. So what the Buddha says to Patachara theory, do not worry, Patachara, you have come to the only one who is capable, samatha, to provide refuge, who is the only one who can provide refuge. And Patachara theory, she becomes a Sotapanna and requests Bhagwan Buddha for ordination. Then when in her Therigatha she says, she sees the water flowing at different lengths while washing her feet. And then she realizes how the length of the flowing water represented the age of the people in this samsara. And then at the end of it, she comes to her room, to her chamber, and she puts out the wick from the oil, and the flame is extinguished. So the wick here represents the craving, tanha, and the oil, the avidya or the ignorance. The flame is the dukkha, which gets extinguished. So a teacher of other theories, like even in the Therigatha, there are so many other Therigathas representing gratefulness to Parachara theory, like the Tismatta theory, the Panchasatta theory, 30, 500 theories. A lot of them, because of the grief of losing their son, husbands, near dear ones, they used to come to Patachara seeking out for her. And she gave them the teaching of the Tathagata, the Buddha, and they came out of suffering. So the Therigatha also talks about revering or venerating the Patachara theory's feet. So all these theories are so thankful to Patachara theory. And that is what we see. So she's such a young lady who becomes foremost in Vinaya, in rules, in following the rules. So this is what a tremendous transformation, and so inspiring. Again, so when we look at the general analysis, so here we have predominantly the dukkha that the women have are related to 2 things. One is living with other wives. So this is a very common thing during that time. So like the king had many queens, even the sethis, sometimes they had many wives. So this was one of the dukkha that the women had. And the second one was giving birth to children. It's a painful thing for them. So these are the 2 primary things which, so getting separated from children. And those were also because of giving birth to the child, they had so much affection or fascination for their children. And that was also one of the things for grief. Therefore, most of the udana that were uttered, or the theories, gathas that were uttered, when they were free from lust, kamachanda, looking at the khandayatana dhatu, that's Khanda, the Panchakhanda. And so that is the method given there. Like in Kisa Gautami Theri, the Four Noble Truths are mentioned. So the specific aspect of the Dhamma, the doctrine mentioned out there, related to their grief or their suffering. And then also the Udanas were occurred when coming out of the grief of separation from dear ones and children, the family for that matter, because this was all the world that the women had at that time. Now, we know that men and women cannot be isolated in society. In fact, the Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni Sangha used to intermingle on a daily basis in the society. Now, it was not just, we know the fourfold Sangha, that Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasak, Upasikas. And the Buddha was always surrounded by these fourfold people, most of the time surrounded whenever in public. So here, the Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni, even in their quarters, they used to intermingle because of the teachings, because going to the Upasakas and Upasikas for alms, the Upasikas inviting them for lunch, for dana, and learning, teaching, problem solving, and all other Dhamma activities they used to intermingle. So this is also a kind of how beautiful the society of the Bhikkhu Bhikkhuni was for the benefit of the people. And amongst the lustful ones, the Arhants abided free of lust. Amongst the hateful ones, free of hatred. Amongst the deluded ones, free of delusion. So beautiful. This was actually, this we can say is the enlightenment, where nothing remains, no defilements remain, and therefore not affected by the worldly samsara. And here we also have Bhadda Kundal Kesa Theri. Again, so wonderful that we have these places out there which we can seek even today. We can visit them even today. So this place, what you see in the picture, is the Gijja Kulta Pabbata. So Bhadda Kundal Kesa basically was a nun. She had only one chivara, one chivara that she was wearing. It wasn't a chivara, it was the nun white garment that she was wearing. Now, from a Jain setup, she had during those times, the nuns, they had the freedom to challenge anyone in public to know, to let their knowledge or to get answers to the questions of life. So here we have this kind of a narration wherein Bhante Sariputta Thera, there is a question answer session. It's a wonderful one. In fact, I would say that each Theri is so wonderful to go into the depth of it, right? So, but here we have Bhadda Kundal Kesa confronting Bhante Sariputta Thera. And then Bhante Sariputta Thera answers all of her questions. But when Bhante Sariputta Thera asks her a question, Ekang Namanki, she's not even able to identify what kind of question this is. What is one? She's not even able to identify. And then the answer to that is food, ahara titika. All living beings subsist on food. So this is the turning point in Bhadda Kundal Kesa's Theri's turning towards the Buddha Dhamma. So Bhante then takes her to the Buddha. So what does she say in a Theri Gatha? She says, Diva Vihara Nikhamma Gijjakutham mi Pabbate Addasang Virajang Buddhang Bhikkhu Sangha Purakhatang. So Nihatcha Janung Vanditva Sammukha Anjaling Akang Ehi Bhadde Timang Avat Same Asupa Sampada. So wonderful. Here we know that during the afternoon time after her wheels, she takes rest, and after that she wakes up and goes to the Gijjakuta Pabbata, where she finds the Buddha, the head of the Bhikkhu Sangha, sitting there. And then Viraja, so stainless. And then she kneels down on her feet and venerates the Buddha, Vanditva. Samukha Anjali, folding her hands in Anjali. And then what does the Buddha say? Ehi bhadde. Just like Ehi bhikkhu. In the initial days, that was how the ordination was in the Bhikkhu Sangha or the Bhikkhuni Sangha. So here we have Bhadda Kundal Kesa getting ordained as Ehi bhadde. Timang avacha same asupasampada. So that's she requests for upasampada. So Bhadda Kundal Kesa then says that she's been roaming around in all these Anga and Kosa, all these places around Magadha. And then she says that, but she doesn't have any debt. So one, because she must be giving Dhamma Desana for whatever alms she was getting. So she says that the person who has donated a chivara to her would be getting lots and lots of merits. She says that in the last sentences of her Gatha. Then we have Vaddhamata and Kumara Kassapa Mata. So these are the you can say the family women who leave their family and they come into the fold of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha and go to refuge as renunciates, both of them. But see the contrast over here. In the case of Vaddhamata she has joined the Sangha, leaving her son to her relatives. And then when the son is of age, he joins the Sangha. So here, at that time, Vaddhamata doesn't have any defilements, which is mentioned in her Gatha. Because a Gatha, again, is a narration of what she says to her son and her son's reply. And then her son says, yes, he agrees. He agrees to what she's saying. And she strictly urges her son to diligently do the duties of the bhikkhu, meditate to gain the liberation like the enlightened ones. So pursuing with determination, Bhikkhu Vaddha attains arhathood. He retires to his chamber and determines to not to get up unless he attains arhathood. So this is how a mother influencing her son into taking no more birth. And here, in the second case, we have Kumar Kassapa's mother. Again, she is a bhikkhuni. So she ordained herself. And we know the story of Kumar Kassapa's mother, that she was, after coming into the bhikkhuni Sangha, she got to conceive. Not to conceive, but she was pregnant. But later it was revealed that this child that she was bearing was before she came into the fold. So here Kumar Kassapa again was taken care of by someone else, and then for a period of 12 years he goes into the Aranya and meditates, and he returns as an Arhat. So the mother over here, after becoming a bhikkhuni, she becomes a mother, right? She gives birth. So that's why she has so much affinity for her son. And when she sees him, in fact, milk starts flowing. And then Kumar Kassapa admonishes, he's an Arhat bhikkhu, and he admonishes his mother with harsh words. And she says, oh, was I waiting for this for 12 years to listen to this? And then she gets determined, abandons her motherly attachment, and retires to attain arhathood in few days. So this is the kind of stories we get to see. And then we have Punnika Thera transforming the Brahmin, Udaka Suddhika. Punnika Theri basically, she's kind of a very oppressed, a maid servant. And she lives in very harsh, subordinate living conditions as a domestic help in a merchant's house. And then the lady of the house doesn't treat her properly. So she's very much afraid of that lady. So the liberation story of Punnika Theri, she's harassed by her mistress and afraid of her, has to work through hardships. So one day she listens to the Buddha and attains Sotapanna. Her wisdom transformed So what happens very early in the morning, she's going to the river to get water, to fetch water. And there she finds a Brahmin, Udaka, Suddhika. Udaka is water, Suddhika is purification. So doing the ritual of purification by water. So in that cold water, he's taking a dip and torturing himself. So this theory, she narrates the liberation method of the Buddha to him. But what are her questions? She's so wise. And she says, what are you afraid of that you come so early to torture your body in the cold? Because she's afraid of her mistress. She asks him, what are you afraid of that you're torturing yourself? So he says, don't you know that this is purification by water? And then she says, then other questions that she has, if you get rid of your sins by a dip, then what about the water animals like fish, all those? They would be free of their sins, right? So this puts him into thinking. And then, if it is so, then even the good karma you do must be getting washed away. So makes sense, right? It does make sense to him. So here is a Brahmin listening to a maidservant. And then so he's so happy that he offers her a cloth in return for her, as a gratitude for making him realize the situation, for making him understand. But she does not accept. And then she tells him to visit the Buddha. So here, when she urges the Brahmin to visit the Buddha to get rid of his kilesas, impurities, sins, and he does so and takes refuge in the Buddha, becomes an arhat. And even Punnika Theri, we have her Theri Gatha. So here again, she also, at a later point of time, also joins the Bhikkhuni Sangha and attains arhathood. So Punnika Theri again here in fact is a narration between the Brahmin, Udaka, Suddhika, and Punnika Theri. Again, we have mother and daughter, both one after the other. We have Abhaya Matu Theri, Abhaya Theri. So these are two, one after the other, these gathas. So the mother is telling the daughter, this body is impure and foul-smelling. And the daughter agrees with the mother. And they both strive and attain arhathood. Daughter says, yes, this body is fragile indeed, so susceptible and so vulnerable to aging. So now we come to the upasikas. So Visakha is one outstanding upasika and foremost in Dana, almost like equal to Upasak Anathapindika. So here, she's a great patron of the Buddha. We get to know from the Dhammapada Attakatha, so wonderful to learn how to be a good Upasika. At the age of 7, we already know that she attained Sotapanna. And then she is a mother to her father-in-law, Migar Mata. Migar is a father. And because she also makes him realize how the Buddha Dhamma is supportive in bringing good life. So here again, Migar Mata comes into refuge of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And we can see even the ruins of Kubbaram Vihara here in Savatthi. So the Buddha used to spend most of his time, distribute his time in Jetvan, that is the Gandhakuti, Jetvan, and Kubbaram. And the foremost Upasika, Khujuttara, again, she has a bent back. She's Queen Samavati's maid. And after listening to the Buddha's discourse, becomes Sotapanna. And so much so that she comes and confesses that she was, in fact, stealing half of the kahapanas for which she had to fetch flowers for Queen Samavati. She becomes fearless of the consequences. And even Queen Samavati, on the other hand, is so considerate of this positive aspect of Khujuttara and in awe of the Buddha's teaching. To know more about that, she requests her to give the discourse. And like the Buddha, she takes a bath, puts on new clothes and sits on a high seat and gives the discourse to queen and 500 maids, and they also become Sotapanna. So this is so wonderful again. Listening to the teaching, implementing it immediately, and then when you tell it to someone else, also attains the same stage. And this we can see also in the case of Sariputta Thera and Mahamoglan Thera. Sariputta Thera listens to when Bhante Assaji and goes and tells the same thing. Ye hetu pabhava, ye dhamma hetu pabhava. So that gatha. And then even Mahamoglan Thera attains Sotapanna. So this is again a unique aspect of Dhamma that we get to see. Yeah. So listening to the Dhamma, who knows a little more than us, is so beneficial. Why did all of these go for refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha? If I can extend for another 10 minutes, I would like to wrap up in another 10 minutes. So if that is okay.
Yes, right. Please continue.
Thank you, Pankaj. So the next thing that we get to think in our minds, why did they go for refuge in the Buddha Dhamma and Sangha? We become what we worship, says Bhante, Dr. Punnaji Mahathera. We become what we worship. And the Buddha is the highest ideal, highest value. The guna of the Buddha, the 9 virtues, the 9 characteristics, qualities of the Buddha. That is the importance of Buddhanusati. So the gratefulness that it's one way of showing gratefulness for the Buddha, because the Buddha has given us the way out of suffering. But on the other hand, we also start accepting or imbibing all of these qualities, little by little, drop by drop. And with time, it takes time, but we know for sure that is how the mind works. Manupubangama Dhamma. The Dhamma, the practice of the teaching taken to heart. Because Dhamma, when taught, has to be taken to heart. It has to come into the chitta. That is the place of the chitta, the heart. And then when you take it to heart, the samvega we have of Dhamma. And that is called as Dhare Titi Dhamma is the definition of Dhamma, basically. Dharana, upholding the Dhamma. Where does it uphold? Does not let us go into the lower realms. That is where it upholds. It keeps us at that position of Manusa and the upper realms. That is upholding the Dhamma. But the intention of the Dhamma, the goal of the Dhamma, is not the 31 planes. It is Lokuttara, not Lokiya, but Lokuttara. Lokuttara is the Nibbana, is the city of Nibbana. So this Dhamma, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and then how does this whole thing, how is this whole thing basically? The Buddha, we can say that is the sun. And the rays that are coming from the sun is the Dhamma. And these rays, when they fall on beings, they remove, or any place, they remove the darkness. The Dhamma removes the darkness. The Buddha's Dhamma removes darkness, avidya. And this is represented by the Sangha. So we can see the radiance of the Buddha even today. The discourse that Bhante gave today morning, we know that this light of the Buddha, we can see with our eyes even today. And I would also like to say Vandami to all the Bhante and Ayya present here, attending the session. And I would like to say Vandami to all of them, because they are the light. They are the light, and we seek refuge in them. They are the gems of the Buddha, the Dhamma. Dhamma we cannot see with our eyes, and the Buddha as a living person we cannot see, but we can very well see the living Sangha. So the refuge in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha makes us free from fear, anxiety, suffering, illness, rebirth in lower realms and defilements. And then we also have the stages that we need to develop as a householder in the Four Noble Truths, to know the Four Noble Truths. Because the light is the Four Noble Truth. And so the first thing is Saddha. That's the goodness of selflessness and devotion. Then next is Sila, which all of us, even in the Living Dhamma session, we are trying to imbibe amongst our kids. And then Sutta, learning the Dhamma, listening, reading. And then Chag, giving up likes and dislikes. And then Panya, that's the path to wisdom. So these are the 5 stages of cultivation of mind. And knowledge and morality in the Buddha Dhamma go together like heat and light in a flame, says Bhante Dhammapal. So later relevance comes about the Arahat Bhikkhuni Sangha. We already know about Dhamma Asok, Emperor Asok in the 3rd century, and that he set out missionaries, Arhat missionaries, to 9 different places all around Jambudipa. So the Arhata Sangamita Theri, his daughter, was called upon to ordain the women of the royal family, Queen Anula Devi, in Sri Lanka. So Mahavansa describes in much detail the wisdom and courage of the Theri to protect the Mahabodhi tree from the Nagas. So she takes the form of a Garuda, Suparna. The offspring of now this Mahabodhi tree is the original offspring from Bodh Gaya, the original tree offspring from Bodh Gaya, and it stands even today. So she was barely 32 years of age when she took the Mahabodhi tree to Sri Lanka. So the Arhat Bhikkhunis, the powerful concept of metta. So in the Karaniya Metta Sutta, the Buddha gives the metaphor of a mother, how a metta should be. Mata yathaniyang puttang ayusa eka puttam manurakhe. Evam pisabba bhutesu manasang bhavaya parimani. Likewise should be the metta for all humanity. And then this is such a Lokiya concept here of metta, the Brahma Vihara. It's a Lokiya concept. And therefore, the woman and the frail physical body by nature is made in such a way that it endorses this additional responsibility to carry another Namrup within her body. And after attaining Arhatu the Theri, they asked, am I a male or a female? And then, after becoming an Arhat, the denominations of male and female gender are no more. And then the Arhat Bhikkhuni is free from defilements and suffering. Each of the life of the Theris is a book in itself. So we hear the Theris speak to us directly through the poems. Their powerful message stirs our heart to walk on a path of righteous cultivation of our mind, that's civilization. And today's relevance is that dukkha is no different then and now. It's just the same. Because Baba Sahib, like today Bhante said, Pandita Nancha Sevana. Asevana cha balanang, Pandita Nancha Sevana. So Baba Sahib, Pandita Nancha Sevana. So he is the one, the Pandit, who we are blessed with. He invoked in us the seed and the need of cultivation of mind as the aim, and women as a measure of human progress. So more responsibility on women, because they create the future, encouraging us through his super intellectual capacity and sheer generosity. That's Pati Rupa Desavasu, drafting the constitution, of independent India, setting the foundation of progressive India. His promulgation of the Hindu Code Bill and then resigning on moral grounds after a righteous struggle for 3 years. So now, how can we be Balo in this case and not following? Because we know that it is for our benefit. So how can we reject the Hindu Code Bill? Because it is for the benefit of all, right? So how can we be Balo? How can we be we be staying away from progress? And then we have the Suttamai Paya, which Baba Sahib gave us the ground, his book, The Buddha and his Dhamma, and the Pali dictionary as the roadmap for us descendants. And then the Tisarana, the 22 vows, Saddha in Tisarana, and eventually opening up the gate, which is the refuge in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, the supreme noble triple gems back in India. That Sila again of the very example of his virtuous life that he has lived as a Bodhisattva. The title he was conferred in the sixth Buddhist Council, which also contained Arya bhikkhus. So here we have today's relevance of why we should follow on this path. And then we conclude here that we are born, we do not know why, ignorant without the knowledge of Four Noble Truths. It's Four Noble Truths that makes us knowledge, that gives us knowledge. Jnana. Buddhism is a process of growth and evolution and an effort to solve the problem of existence. Meditation is purification of the mind from things that deter us from attaining our welfare. And concluding with Sanghamitta Theres, today's aspect, she went to Sri Lanka away from her motherland and lived and spread the Buddha's Dhamma with so much metta, never came back. And liberated, taught the path of liberation to the women in Sri Lanka who owe deeply with immense gratitude to her even today. And the event of her coming to Sri Lanka and bringing the Bodhi tree, which is called as Jayasiri Mahabodhi tree. The Uduvapa Poya Day on the full moon of December is marked with great celebration in respect to her, with great reverence, faith, and care that they protect the Bodhi tree. We know that, and history tells us. This day is proposed to be celebrated as International Women's Day. It's not yet, but yes, going on. Like the United Nations, they have a theme every year for International Women's Day. Like this year, it was the technology theme. So the technology, again, that women should be represented into, should be taken into the fold of science and technology. That was the theme of this year's International Women's Day. So they have a theme, the United Nations. And then we see that Sanghamitta Theres passed away in 203 at the age of 79. And she was the one who instructed King Uttiya, her brother passed away, Mahamahinda Thera. And she was the one who guided and instructed how the cremation should be. So likewise, she also had selected a place for her own death, the cremation place for her own death, before her death, in fact. And she told that to King Uttiya, and that was in front of the Bodhi tree. And King Uttiya did her last rites. So like this International Women's Day, about science and technology, things are happening. Like in 2022, the Nobel Prize was awarded to quantum information science, which is very, very closely approaching the religion aspect of things. But it is, you can say, it doesn't have the capacity to merge right now. But there are certain evidences that we find in the research that is happening. And three scientists, three researchers, three physicists were awarded for this research in quantum information science. A little more of this is, I've mentioned in Buddhism and Science, another talk that I had given. So here we are looking at women getting into the fold of science and technology. That is this year's theme, United Nations for International Women's Day. Urging all of us, science and technology, how it can benefit and how it can refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha benefit us. you need to have your own answers for yourself. Thank you so much for listening. And lots of metta.
Thank you very much. Thank you for what a wonderful discourse today. And I have to stand up and clap for your discourse today.
Oh, no,
Indeed are the liberated women, daughters of the Buddha. So thank you. We are very happy to listen to you today and happy to have you deliver us the Dhamma discourse.
Thank you, Pankaj. Yeah, thank you.
Do we have time for question and answer? We definitely wanted to take some questions.
Sure.
So we will open up the forum for question and answer. Mahesh, please go ahead and unmute yourself with your question. You raise the hand.
No problem. Thank you, Tai. It's a very wonderful talk, listening from the beginning to the end. Wonderful slides presentation there. I have one question regarding the swastika vihara you mentioned, swastika bhikkhuni vihara. And you also mentioned there are still evidence of those vihara kind of. So is that a significance of swastika vihara? Because nowadays swastika is been been used on the other side also. So in our Buddhist significance, what is the importance of swastika?
Yes. Yes. So here, thank you for that question, Maheshji. What I can say here is there are two things over here. One is about symbolism. So symbolism has been the initial representation of Buddhism for that matter, even the Buddha for that matter. Like if we see the inscriptions, the Ashokan inscriptions, and also what is the archaeological remains today, we find that the Buddha is represented in terms of the Bodhi tree, the wheel, and so many other representations. But when we come to the wheel specifically, means a chakra, right? Wheel is a chakra. And this wheel has been the symbol of the Dhamma. The 8-spoked wheel is the eightfold path. And then you also have the 24 spokes there, which is put up on our flag. So this wheel is shown by artists as the swastika. It's a moving wheel. The swastika is a moving wheel. Now this swastika, how do we know that that this wheel was used as the Dhamma Chakra? If we go to Sarnath, we have the Dhammika Stoop there. And if we go near it very closely, we find different types of designs of swastika all over the Dhammika Stoop. So it's the wheel, and that's the place. The Sarnath is the place for the Dhamma Chakra Pavattana Sutta. So wheel basically has been represented in stone carving and the like. In terms of swastika, it represents a moving wheel. So it's very much the Buddha's time, during the Buddha's time that it was. But otherwise also, and we have the Ratha Sutta and so many other representing the chariot. Because for a king, a wheel, the knowledge about the Ratha, the chariot, is in details. A king always knows everything about it in details. So here again, we have, because the Buddha is comes from a Khattiya fold. So here again, the wheel has been used to represent, the swastika has been used to represent a wheel. So it's very much a Buddhist concept. Yeah. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, thank you, Tai. Your next question is coming from Satinath Chaudhary. Satinath ji, please go ahead.
Yeah. Just trying to. Okay, yeah, you can, I guess, hear me. So I haven't been able to. Okay, you can see me also. Okay.
Yes, I
Excuse me, sorry. My question is with regard to like arhat and arhathood, and also something. I'll try to make it brief. Is celibacy essential for somebody to be a Buddhist monk? And I guess in Christianity, the Protestants separated from Catholics. I'm not very sure, but possibly this celibacy was one of the reasons they separated. So, is there any kind of Buddhist Buddhism where celibacy is not required? And how does one figure out whether one has become an arhat? And yeah, I'll just, I have so many questions, but I'll leave it at these two.
Okay, thank you for your question, Satinaji. And here, like you said, the two questions about celibacy and how does one know if one is an arhat, right? So here we have the first question I would like to take up. Celibacy basically is the requirement of a physical contact between a husband and a wife is basically for reproduction. That is the main purpose, right? So when one comes into the fold of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, it is important that one has to come out of, or one has to follow certain rules, right? Because the Thervad, if you look at the Pali Tipitaka, the Thervad is, that is Sthavirvad. Sthavirvad means Savir is elders. So elders means like the Theris, the Arhant ones. So this is the lineage of the Arhata, Theris and Theras. So when we come to know about anagarika, going away from home, being a renunciate, not staying in a home, right? Nekhamma is what is called. And like the Buddha's going away renunciation is called as abhinekhamma, mahabhinekhamma. So here we know that it is important to focus on a particular aspect with determination. And that can be achieved only when, because this again, Buddha's Dhamma is to see within ourselves. It is to do with our individual self. It is not to do with all of us around, It's only the metta aspect that is to be spread around us, but the main asceticism that is to be done is within. That's the meditation, the vipassana. And for that, we have to keep to a bare minimum. And that is the reason to stay away. Now, even if we look at the 8 precepts that we follow, the Uposat days, even there we do not have this. It's like you have to live a celibate life, right? Even while staying at home, right? So that's abrahmacharya veramani, sikkhapadang samadhiyami. So the importance of a celibate life is the primary thing for us to stay away from defilements, right? Those are defilements after all. That is why the Buddha never encouraged bhikkhus, or in the early days, like the Buddha's cousin Nanda, the Buddha discouraged him to get married. He was so much affected and in in fascination for his to-be wife, but then the Buddha discouraged him to get married. But then the Buddha never said that they should not be happy. A married couple, how they can be happy? He said to reduce your lust, there's a Dhammapad Gatha, and in the Sukhavaggo. So where the young couple, the Buddha instructs, and they both become Sotapanna. So this is something like is one of the most important factor in following the precepts in a proper manner. Otherwise, one cannot go beyond the 5 precepts, which any householder can keep for that matter, and which does not entail a celibate life. That is for upasakas. But for upasakas, we also have the 8 precepts, that is uposatha precepts, which includes a celibate life. So this is about the first question. And then about the second one that you said, how do we know that, or how does one know that he's an arhat? One may or may not know that he's an arhat. A bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni who's practiced may or may not know. A 7-year child doesn't know he's an arhat. And even his teacher, who's a very senior bhikkhu, doesn't know he's an arhat. But then what he answers, like the elder bhikkhu, somehow by mistake hits him with a stick, and he makes him blind in one eye, hurts the child's eye, 7-year-old child's eye. So this child, he replies, "Oh, Bhante, doesn't matter. It is not your fault. It's the vata, the sansara vata, the round of sansara, that is the kamma vata that is there. It is because of the kamma in sansara that this event occurs. It is not your fault." So the elder teacher is so much perplexed. He says, how does he answer like this? And he goes to the Buddha and says, look, this has happened. And then the Buddha says, yes, he's an arhat. And even when a person is an arhat, yes, the Buddha may know anyone who's an arhat, another person may know that, probably. But a person who is below the level of an arhat, below the stage of an arhat, may not know. So the Buddha has given in the Vimansaka Sutta, by himself, the Buddha has given this to us. Vimansaka is investigation. How will you know that a Buddha is a Buddha, a Tathagat is a Tathagata? To the layman, just see his conduct, the way he conducts himself. Does his way of moving, charya, does it represent anywhere that he has an attachment, or she has an attachment, or she has an ego? Does it represent anywhere? Check for yourself. So the steps are given out there. So this is the greatness of the Buddha. And all these qualities of the Buddha make us bow before him, just by our heart. So have I answered your questions?
I don't know. I'm not sure. But you see, because, well, let me ask you another one. When was it, was Buddhist teaching put on in writing? When was it? And how do we know that whatever his teachings were are really the ones coming from Buddha? And besides, Buddha was a human being, right? Like Ambedkar was a human being. Maybe 100 years later, he might become somebody, Tathagat. And we know, I don't know, some people may believe that he was faultless. But personally, I have read some things and I don't agree with, the way he considered the scheduled tribes. He had to be convinced that they are, they should be given certain rights. There he was wrong. So similarly, I accept Buddha as a human being who had a lot of good thinking, but I cannot accept him to be a god or something. Like Buddha was not a theist. He was in a way atheist. So I look at Buddha as a enlightened human being, not above any faults. So similarly, his thinking about celibacy, I do not accept to be essential for somebody to think in the right direction. Thank you.
Satyanathji, I would like to say one thing here, just one thing, that if there are people around you and you do not know about them much, okay, but then they have an opinion about you. They have their own opinions about you. Do you think when you get to hear them that they are right? Are those people right when they opine or give opinion or judge about you? Are they right?
Yeah, some may be right, some may be wrong.
Yes, that's the answer to your question. We all have perceptions, right? It is only when we read the Tipitaka for ourselves, what does it impact us? How do we know? And then what is our inner instinct that is telling us after reading it? Maybe not just one time, because we know we are ignorant people. We so much defilements, that's why we've taken birth. And therefore, if we read maybe 5 times, 6 times the Tipitaka, maybe we may not understand even after that. And then one lifetime is so short to read through so many texts. But yes, no need to go through so many texts. Even a small bit of it. Have we really read it? And then what are our perspectives, our perceptions after reading it? Is our own perception? Is that the ultimate truth? Is the truth of those people who judge you maybe for what you're not? Is it true? Is it the ultimate truth? So I can say this much as of now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sai. And his one question was, when was the Tipitaka written form? So that happened at the 4th Buddhist Council.
Yes. I'm sorry, I missed
wanted
that.
to add that that part
Yes.
of it.
So the fourth, the council,
Sure.
basically, the council, we see the first council, which was orally done, just by word of mouth, happened immediately 3 months after the Buddha's passing away, after the Mahaparinirvan. And it's written down, carried to us all through these ages on a regular basis. Now, let's say the first council immediately, that's after 3 months, of Arhat members who recited, like Bhante Upali, who is foremost in Vinaya, and Bhante Ananda, who had a strong memory to remember the Buddha's suttas. So they were the ones basically reading or saying it out. And the Arhat members, there were 500 of them, and they were, in fact, acknowledging by saying yes 3 times. So this is the method of the council. They are Arhats. We will have to know first, who are these Arhats? What is their capacity? What is their capability? What is it free from defilements? So this is one thing. Next is this first council, then immediately 100 years after is the second council at Vaishali. And then the third council at Patliputra. That's during the time of King Asoka. And then at that time, there were around 1,000 Arhats. And Mahamogliputra Tisathera presided over it. And then we have the fourth council in Sri Lanka, the Theravada council I'm talking about. And that is this fourth council, the Tipitaka was written down. it was written down in Sri Lanka. That's, I think, the 1st century BCE. During the 1st century BCE, this took place. And because it was written down because the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis feared that it should not go away. So technology, if we talk about, this is the technology, the writing technology at that time. It was written down on ola leaves. So ola leaves, there is a method, even today we find that in Sri Lanka. So there is a method, basically, to prepare the barks of ola leaves, and then just with a pointed instrument, you need to carve over those leaves and then treat it. So that's the way that these, and you find all of them, all such written down, maybe 1,000, 1,400 years old, in some in Kandy as well. We can see them. Even in museums, you can see them. So they have been written down, and from then on, until then, it was all verbally passed on by the method of Patimokha. That's every 15, that means 2 times in a month, the rules and the sutta need to be recited in the Vihara by the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. So that's how they had maintained the verbal. And that's why we see the gathas, right? The verses. They are like, they have a meter so that one can remember them quickly. We know that we can remember the songs, we can remember so quickly because they have a meter and they have a kind of a tune to it, a rhythm. So that's how they were remembered and passed on until the 1st century BCE.
Thank you, Tai. Tai, your next question is coming from online. The question is liberation same as enlightenment? And the second part to the question is the liberation same for women as it is for men?
So liberation and enlightenment, the difference, like I said, is basically in translations or prima facie, it seems the same. But we can go into the depth of it, because even after the 8-fold noble path, there are 2 more things. The ultimate one is Samma Vimutti, Samma Jnana and Samma Vimutti. Samma Vimutti, that is also one of them. But for an Arhat, it is liberation, free from defilements. And that is also called as enlightenment. Enlightenment, basically, word comes from bodhi or bujjati, to awaken. So it also means, enlightenment also means that the Arhat, the liberated ones, are the enlightened ones from this perspective. So, but when we talk about Samma Sambuddha, is different. When we talk about Pacheka Buddha, is different. But eventually, an Arhat is also called as attaining Buddhahood. But that is Savaka Buddhahood. He's a Savak, he's the disciple. He's attained enlightenment through the teachings of the Samma Sambuddha. The Samma Sambuddha finds a path, discovers by himself, and that is basically attaining the Sambodhi, that is Sambodhi. Yeah. So that is the difference, the Sambodhi and the Bodhi. Yeah.
And the second part,
Buddha
is it the
also
same
learned
for
from the previous Buddhas?
the second part to the question? And Raju, please be patient to get your chance. We'll allow you to ask your question. Okay. The second part on the question was, is the liberation or the arahanthood stages were the same for women as it was for male. Uh, is it same for women and men? Yeah.
Yes. Basically, for the stages, if we talk about just this life, the stages are the same. But then if we talk about the foremost ones, foremost disciples, then they have made some aspiration in their past life, just like the Samma Sambuddha has done that in the past life, an aspiration to become a Samma Sambuddha, an aspiration to become the foremost in the dispensation of the Samma Sambuddha. Those are the foremost Savakas. So otherwise it is the same for male and female. It is just getting rid of sankharas or defilements. It is that. Asavakhay Nyan is the final one. Getting rid of asavas, the defilements. So it's the same for men as well as women. And to the question that Rajuji said, that the Samma Sambuddha also learned from previous Buddhas is very true. It's true that that is the tradition of the Buddhas. And the tradition of the Buddhas is such that after becoming a Buddha, the Buddha attains Sabbanyo Jnana, knowledge of everything, omniscient knowledge. So this omniscient knowledge is then either, so there are two things. The Samma Sambuddha will not do anything by himself. Whenever someone requests the Samma Sambuddha, they will do it. So that's why the Brahma came and requested the Buddha that you should teach. The Brahma came and requested 3 times, because the Brahma is, living even during that time and this time, and for such a long period of time that he knew that the earlier Buddhas also did the same way. So here we have, so this is the way of the Buddhas. The way of the Buddhas that Buddha Gautama told was, I don't take any alms after I give the desna. This is the tradition of the Buddhas. And also to his father, to King Suddhodan, the Buddha says, no, this is the tradition of the Buddhas, to take alms, to beg for alms. This is the tradition of the Buddhas. When King Suddhodan says, oh, this is not a tradition, in our royal family, this is not the tradition. So here we have the Samma Sambuddha also having the knowledge, the omniscient knowledge, and therefore all Buddhas will know that, will have that knowledge.
Yeah, thank you, Dai. Raju, if you have a follow-up, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I had a same question. As Samma Sambuddha is following the previous Buddhas, then how come he became the only Buddha? Even Arhat or liberated one can become a Samma Sambuddha.
So here we need to know the process, basically. When a Samma Sambuddha or anyone aspiring to become a Samma Sambuddha, that is, you can say the Mahabodhisattva is what he's called as. Bodhisattva, but a Mahabodhisattva. So how does a Mahabodhisattva take an aspiration to become a Samma Sambuddha? Finding the 4 noble truths, finding the path of the 4 noble truths by taking more number of births to experience all kinds of life, to know all. He takes those many additional births to know the rounds of samsara, how they function, what is the law of the nature, and finds the path to the 8-fold noble path. That's the 4 noble truths by himself. He does not take the ready knowledge of the Samma Sambuddha, the previous Samma Sambuddha. He doesn't adopt the ready knowledge of Vipassana or the insight, the path of insight from the pre-existing Samma Sambuddha, but he makes an aspiration to the Samma Sambuddha that I want to be like you. I want to be a Samma Sambuddha in the sense I want to find the path for myself, and also because he is able to teach that path to all the beings and remove suffering from the beings by teaching, by his own teaching. So that is the metta. So therefore, we find in the later development that there are two qualities of a Mahabodhisattva. What are those two qualities that he abides by through all of his lives until he becomes a Samma Sambuddha? One is that he has Mahakaruna for the beings, for the suffering of beings. That is the driving force, that the suffering of beings he wants to remove. And second is the Upai Kausalya Jnana, the method, the skillfulness. Here, skillfulness doesn't mean, kind of treachery or something or manipulation. It doesn't mean that. It is getting trained, acquiring the skills, like we acquire skills for office work or for any kind of work. So that kind. So Upai Kausalya Jnana and Mahakaruna, these are the two qualities which drive the Mahabodhisattva to become a Samma Sambuddha. So here it is his own path, and therefore he finds it for himself. Even the Pacceka Buddha finds for himself. But then the Pacceka Buddha is not able to teach to others. But the Samma Sambuddha is able to teach and liberate so many suffering beings along. Because those are the beings which he has come across in samsara when he was striving to attain the skillfulness, to attain the bodhi in the final birth. So those are the paramis. And there are additional paramis that he fulfills. So those are the 10 paramis by the foremost savakas of the Buddha. Then there are 10 more by the Pacceka Buddha, and there are 10 more that those paramis, those are paramatha paramis that the Mahabodhisattva fulfills to become a Samma Sambuddha. And 4 asankhya, 4 infinites, and 1,100,000 eons. Those many, the Samma Sambuddha had to fulfill. Those many births, the Samma Sambuddha had to go through suffering to understand the suffering of all beings. And then the Samma Sambuddha in the last birth found out the way to become, or the Mahabodhisattva found out a way to become the Samma Sambuddha. So that is the path he treads all by himself.
Thank you, Tai. Tai, your next question is, are there examples of lay disciples who have become arhants, especially women? And the second part to this is, are the lay people allowed to be arhants, or can they be arhants at the same time as they are lay people?
It is attaining any stage is possible, but then continuing with the final stage of arahata for an upasaka is not possible, because of either the upasaka who has attained arhathood within a specific time, within that time frame itself, has to take up the robes, the chivara, and become a renunciate, a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni. So in the case of upasaka, we have this example of Bahiya Daruchariya, who comes to the Buddha and says that he doesn't have time. There's not much time left for him to live. And therefore he requests the Buddha, begs for the Buddha to give him the teaching when the Buddha is on arms round. And right there, the Buddha gives him the teaching. Dittha dittha mataya ditthesi. So here, he just goes alongside the road in the same clothes, and he practices and becomes an arhat. But the moment he becomes an arhat, he gets a vipak of his previous karma, of some birth. And he gets killed. So somehow or the other, if a person is in lay attire, that is he has not come under the refuge or as a bhikkhu or a bhikkhuni, then an arhat will have to give away, has to give away his life. So upasakas becoming arhat. Also, there are other like there is one more in the Dhammapad Gatha, where the royal person, the minister, he becomes arhat, but he doesn't want to continue with the bhikkhu, with becoming a bhikkhu. So he takes leave from the Buddha. He goes into so the Buddha says that you rise up in the air and tell about your attainment, and he says so. So there are cases where upasakas, lay persons, can become arhat. Amongst women, I think I have not come across. Even in the Therigatha or otherwise. No.
But the first part to that question was like, are there any examples of women becoming arhat?
So
like
women, lay people, like I said, I have not come across.
but they can become arhats in general. All
Yes.
Therigatha are from the school of it, right? Yeah.
Yes, like Matuka Mata, she attained Anagami stage. She didn't attain arhat stage. She was a lay woman. So, but if anyone becomes an arhat, usually it also happens at the time of unbinding, at the time of, yeah. So, but there are no such instances that I've directly come across as a sutta or something. I've not come across in the Pali Tipitaka.
Okay, Tai, thank you very much. Your next question is coming from Mahendra. Mahendra, please try to limit yourself to one question and be precise on your question. Go ahead. Mahendra Survase.
JB, excellent session. Thank you so much. It was done so nicely. Quick question that, okay, in my understanding, I look at Buddhism as a very scientific and rational ideology, Dhamma, religion, you name it. And obviously it's a human nature. That's how I see myself, that okay, anything that we love and like, we end up kind of glorifying it. So my question is that, okay, we are talking about the rebirth, which is difficult to kind of comprehend and understand. Is it really a Buddhist concept, or has that been one of the addition by the love and compassion towards Buddhism and Buddha?
I'm sorry, I did not get your second part of the question. Could you please repeat?
The same thing. It's like is truly rebirth Buddhist concept, or is it just a loving glorification of the religion?
Okay, I got it. Yeah, thank you for your question, Mahendraji. So here we are talking about rebirth of what? So rebirth of what? And this answer is in the Buddha and Dhamma by Baba Sahib. Rebirth of what? So is it the rebirth of a person, the same identical person after death getting born again? Or is it the rebirth of the mental aspect of the person? What is it? So Buddhism, or the Buddha's Dhamma, talks about karma and vipaka, that is action and its result, which is very, very scientific. We know that, cause and effect, right? And this cause and effect, what comes when, is predefined in the sense, okay, this will get ripened at this stage, and so on and so forth. But when we talk about a human being in Buddhism, Abhidhamma or other texts also tell us about nama and rupa. So are we talking about the rebirth of the material aspect as we are right now? Or are we talking about the nama aspect? The nama aspect basically consisting of chitta, chetasika. So here, Buddhism talks about the nama aspect, the chitta taking birth. What kind of chitta? what kind of mentality do we hold? The three types of mentalities that we know generally is about greed, hatred, and delusion. That's lobha, dosa, moha. So this kind of mentality that we have, if we have a greedy mentality, greediness towards something, obviously the tendency of our mind to go towards that is more. So kamma gati and chitta gati are the two things that that we get. So the Buddha always talks about sugati, gati. Gati, we know that gati means movement in a direction, right? So this gati, whether the gati is in a downward direction or in the upward direction, we know that heaviness is going to give us weight in the downward direction, and lightness is going to give us weight in the upward direction. So these are the lobh, dosa, moha, they are the hetus, they are the causes. And this hetu is basically, it can be lobh, dosa, moha as the heavy hetu, and the light hetu, you can say, are the alobha, adosa, amoha. That's to do with non-greediness, or generosity for that matter, or it has to do with non-hatred or metta, loving kindness, or the third one can be like it's to do with non-delusion, or you can also say that avihimsa, karuna for that matter. So these are the lighted aspects that make us rise above, go to a lighter realm, take birth in a lighter realm, and the heavy ones, lead us to the lower realms. So this is mentioned, the kamma and the result of what we do, the action and the result, is all about the Buddha Dhamma. And even taking birth, the mind taking birth is there. So it is actually the extinguishment of the lobha, dosa, moha, and also the alobha, adosa, amoha. That is the liberation of the mind eventually. So it is not something that's a blind faith towards, affection towards the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha or something. It is more of the saddha. That is what we see. The Buddha said, "Ehi passiko," come and see for yourself. It's only when we come and see what we see, what is the insight meditation, what is the Buddha's Dhamma, how does the Kamma and Vipak theory work right here and now. So unless and until we have our experience, I think it is very difficult to understand at the intellectual level, just at the intellectual level. So initially may be fine, but we need to move ahead with that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So to you, Pai. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. With this, we have kind of overshoot ourselves by around 45 minutes now. Than our regular target of 2 hours for this session today. So it was a great session. Nonetheless, we are very happy to receive the talk from you, Tai, and we are grateful that you delivered it in such a beautiful way. Thank you very much. I just wanted to remind everyone here that that is the Ambedkar Association of North America, conducts it online Buddha Vihara every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And it's the same link that you joined this call. That remains the same link for you to join every week. So please do join us next week as well. And until we meet again, I just wanted to thank our story reader today, Samit Survase. And I wanted to thank Bhante Siri Sivli for his Dhamma discourse and Dhamma Dana today. And I wanted to thank our guest speaker, Vaishali Gaidhani today, for her time and excellently delivered speech. Until we meet all of you again.
Can we get her email ID, please? Email ID.
We will share everything over this one, and she's there in the group as well.
Okay, thank you.
Dada?
Pankaj Dada, it's just a request. Could I make an announcement if possible?
Yes, Kranti, please go.
So just wanted to let everyone know that we are having special programs to honor March Women's Month, and we will not have kids session for next 2 weeks. So thank you so much. Thank you, Vaishali Tai.
Thank you,
Thank
Kranti Tai.
you. Thank you, Tai.
Namo Buddhaya, Jai Bhim to